Quickfill gasoline is made right here in America. United Refining Company, who operates Quickfill, refines its gasoline from North American crude oil in Warren, Pennsylvania. When you buy United Refining Company gasoline at Quickfill, you keep jobs and businesses in America, and you keep American families strong. You don't need to send your money overseas when you buy gasoline. Buy American-made gasoline at Quickfill. Quickfill, driving America.
From baggage claim to pajamas in 10 minutes. Erie International Airport. Fly with ERI.com.
Fly Erie International Airport to Charlotte on American Airlines, your nonstop gateway to the world. Also, we have Breeze Airways flying nonstop to Orlando and Tampa, Florida. A great low-cost carrier providing excellent service to the regional community. Fly Erie International for your travel needs.
Fly with ERI.com.
Welcome to TalkErie.com's Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast. Every day, we tackle the biggest issues that the Erie, PA region faces. Stay informed and involved as we advance the narrative of Erie. Now, here's Joel Natale.
We want to bring in Dr. Jeff Bloodworth from Gannon University. He's a political scientist and historian, and we're going to talk about this a preview of this election here with some perspective, Dr. Bloodworth. So appreciate you joining us here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so let's get a little bit of your personal background on elections. Okay, so do you remember when you were 18 when you first voted your first one? Or?
Oh yeah, 1988. That was my first presidential election.
88.
Yeah.
So that was H.W. Bush against Michael Dukakis, and. What do you remember about that race? Because that was a little lopsided. I mean, it was close, and then it kind of went sideways on Dukakis, right? I mean,
yeah. So I grew up in very red America. In fact, George H.W. Bush came to my Southern Baptist church to campaign in the Republican primaries, and for my family, I mean, that was like next to Jesus coming. Wow. I mean, it was a very big deal.
Yeah.
They loved Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush was, I don't know. I still remember where I was in the front row of the balcony of the church. I was, 75 yards away. And that was a big deal for my family. So I remember that election quite well.
Yeah. Of course, he was a one-termer, and, people talk about, well, it's all because of Trump that we're so divisive or whatever. They really harangued that guy. I mean, the James Carville in 1992 was like, it's the economy, stupid, and we had a dip, and he had to raise taxes, and that was political suicide. A lot of people would say,
Yeah, look, a little bit. I'm a historian. Perspective. I mean, American politics have always been extremely rambunctious. Over-the-top rhetoric is normal, right? I mean, American politics is mass entertainment. We live in a particularly hyper-partisan time. And so in our lifetimes, really since World War II, we've never experienced this. But, late 19th century American politics, I mean, the elections that we have now are normal. There was 80% turnout in the late 19th century.
Wow.
People were always talking about civil war. People felt the stakes were existential. It doesn't mean that this is good or healthy, but we've been here before. We're going to pass out of this era. It's not fun, but this is cyclical in American political life.
This populism by Donald Trump, it kind of reflects a lot of Andrew Jackson, doesn't it? I mean, really.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Steve Bannon, specifically thinks of Donald Trump as being, a 21st century Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much Donald Trump thinks about it in that way, but I do. I mean, he's Andrew Jackson. You can lay the map of the kinds of people that Andrew Jackson, the Scotch-Irish, right, which was his base. And in many ways, that's Donald Trump's base as well. So there's like an ethnocultural root to the Andrew Jackson, Donald Trump. I mean, there's a lot they have in common. There's a lot they don't have in common, but it's more that they have in common.
The demographics are much different now, and we are experiencing something that's really kind of unusual, where traditional factions of either race or identity based politics are getting murky. You have black men going to Trump in this election, whereas white educated women solidly for Harris. What are some of your thoughts on the identity part of this politics here?
The weird thing in 24 is I think we're going to wake up, and one of the things, not the first thing we say, but this is going to be the least racially polarized presidential results that we've had maybe in American history. You don't have to love Donald Trump to recognize that there's something going on, that African American and Hispanic men are voting differently. They're not voting as a racial bloc. Mm-hmm. And I think we can say that for African American men and Hispanic men, they're saying that race is less salient in their lives than maybe class. And I think that's a positive outcome. And that's not to say who wins.
It's very MLK, isn't it? I mean,
yeah. And so we would have thought when Obama won, you're like a post-racial America,
right?
And again, we don't live in a post-racial America. Racism exists, but to have race as a less salient feature of American political life doesn't necessarily look what American liberals necessarily thought it would. I don't think they would have thought wow, African American men are going to vote for right-wing populists.
That was not on their bingo card.
That was not on not on my bingo card either. I didn't predict that.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can look at that, and even if you're a liberal, you can say, wow, maybe race is less, at least in the eyes of African American men. They're saying by their votes that race is not the defining feature of their lives in the way a generation ago it was. And isn't that called progress? Now, again, that's not to say who they're voting for necessarily is going to have better policies for them. We'll let whoever wins, then we can judge that.
Right.
But I don't know. It's one of the surprising. I think that's one of the surprising things that we're going to talk about. It's not going to be the first thing we talk about, but it's going to be. I find that an interesting, surprising result of the Trump era.
So, policy trumping identity. Isn't that what it used to kind of be?
If policy, and I would say class. I mean, this is about college, non-college, and it's about class. And this is where Democrats, I think, have just taken such a wrong turn since the 1960s. It's not to say that gender and race don't matter. They do.
Right.
But class matters above all. Whether you have a college education or whether you don't, that really determines your life. And again, if I'm non-college white, I might live better than a non-college African American, but it's whether I went to college or whether I didn't go to college. And that is a hard-won wisdom that I think is sinking in with Democrats now.
You think?
More so than 20.
Well, and you have the situation here where there's a lot of name calling, and again, whether it was intentional or not, you had the bitter clingers from Obama, you had the deplorables from Clinton, and now you have supposedly the garbage, whether Joe Biden says it or not, right? I mean, it's out there. The press, even on the Today Show, they were quoting that particular clip of President Biden. So whether you're black, white, Hispanic, you don't receive that very well coming from the commander in chief.
No, I mean, look, this is Biden's entire career as a career of gaffes, and him saying, which means he says the things he actually thinks.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
This is one thing that I've always thought made Joe Biden kind of likable.
Sure.
But he's the president. You can't say something like that.
But why does Trump get the pass, though? Trump gets a pass all the time.
He does. He shouldn't say it either. I was about to say, as a former president, you can't say that either. It is wrong that he gets a pass. It is baffling to me that he gets a pass. He does. That he is held to, I think, a standard he sets for himself. He doesn't expect himself to be held to a higher standard. Joe Biden does, and I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. I think it's disqualifying. If you're running for president and you call part of the American electorate garbage, the America that I grew up in, Republican or Democrat, they would have disavowed you. Right. I honestly do. It tells you a lot about the ugly times in which we live. I know a lot of Trump voters. I mean, they're good people. I know a lot of Democratic voters. They're good people. Nobody's garbage. It makes me sad. Biden's old and,
right.
I don't know. This is just what he does. I'm not making excuses for him. He apologized. That's what you should do. Trump is not.
Yeah.
I think that's a distinction with the difference.
Another narrative is, and again, this is pure politics here, but this concept that because of how President Biden was dispatched from the Democratic nomination, that he's sabotaging Harris. Do you see that at all?
No, this is just Joe Biden. It's what he does. He's a gaffe machine.
Yeah.
I think he really doesn't like.
Or that Dr. Jill's not happy and all that stuff.
I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but his legacy is marred forever in the Democratic Party if Harris loses. From the Democratic perspective, this is existential, and Joe Biden not dropping out early, they're going to blame him, not Kamala Harris, and he knows that. So he's not.
Well, that's pretty profound, Doc.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big deal what you just said.
And I think they know that.
So they're not going to blame Kamala. They will blame Joe.
Yeah. No, I mean, could she have run a better campaign? I mean, could the Democrats have nominated a better candidate? Gretchen Whitmer, Josh Shapiro ticket, I think, would have won this.
Would have killed it.
Yeah, absolutely. That mystified me.
Well, so what's the missing link for VP? Because she's next in line. I mean, it was by all rights, if he was going to drop out, the heir apparent was the vice president. Why doesn't she have the right stuff? If she does lose, I guess. Is that the determination? Whether she has the right stuff, if she wins or loses?
Of course. If she wins, she had the right stuff.
She had the right stuff. Yeah.
She's part of the administration, and this is a change election. And to me, it's as simple as Whitmer, Shapiro. They have nothing to do with the Biden administration. They are easily then the change candidates. She's seen by polls as the change candidate. She could not have run a better race. As the vice president of an unpopular administration, I think she has killed it. I just think a Whitmer-Shapiro ticket would have, had there been a nomination fight, would have been even stronger. And I'm not diminishing Kamala Harris at all. I think could not have run a better campaign. She's the vice president of an unpopular White House. It just tells you how unpopular Donald Trump is. If this were Nikki Haley, it'd be 55. It'd be a rout because of
this
inflation.
Is what we were saying a year ago. Mm-hmm. That two different, a Newsom Haley, that two different candidates would have made it extremely competitive, but then you were kind of saddled with what was, Yeah,
74% of Americans said they didn't want Trump Biden. And Nikki Haley said the first party to nominate not an 80-year-old would win. I think she's right. I think Harris is going to win by a nose.
Erie County, you think?
I do. I've never seen Erie. I've never seen the Democrats anywhere. I lived in Ohio in 2004 when the Kerry campaign, Ohio was the tipping point state. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, the Democrats are just all over the place. And,
they have unlimited resources.
And you can, it is everywhere. And the Trump campaign just doesn't have the organization. He could blow the doors open and he could be president-elect by 8:30 tomorrow night. But if it's close, that organization's going to matter. He doesn't have, he's outsourced it to Elon Musk.
Yeah, right.
And he knows how to build a spaceship and an electric car, but he knows nothing about campaigns. And I'm sure you've read the stories about his canvassers. It's not good if you're a Republican, and they know it. So it's one or the other, I think. Blow the doors open close, or they're going to lose most of the swing states closely.
Yeah, that's interesting. So even as tight as it is, actually the outcomes will more likely be very conclusive, is what you're saying.
I think so.
Dr. Jeff Bloodworth is our guest here on Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. And you wrote an article here, and here's the title. I know you're not happy with the title, but How Trump is Tearing Erie Apart. The sub is Tensions Run High in the Bitterly Contested Town. All right. So give us a little bit of the pretext for this.
Well, what I wanted to do was just talk to some Trump voters who live in Erie. I know there's a lot of people I'm a professor, so do I know a lot of liberals? Of course I do. And they love to stereotype and demean. Not only, they extrapolate from Trump and they place, all of their stereotypes onto all of his supporters. So I just sat down with several different Trump supporters and talked to them as humans, people I already knew anyway, but not especially well at all, more than just having. So I talked to them about their biographies, their lives, how they came to be Trump supporters, and showed them as three-dimensional human beings. And the point is, if you don't like Donald Trump, great, knock yourself out. But don't transfer that venom that you have towards Trump supporters, towards Donald Trump onto supporters. And the opposite is true about people who don't like Kamala Harris. Like, we have to see each other as three-dimensional human beings again. And, we have to be able to run the schools together and to work together and to be neighbors again and go to baseball games. And let's fight about, who's going to be the president. But, we can't hate each other.
Right.
Based upon the fact that you dislike somebody who lives in the White House. That seems silly to me.
Before we had the Trump phenomenon, we had what I call the American Idol approach. And, when Barack was, just coming up, when President Obama was coming up, people didn't know really who he was. He had been a state senator, became a senator from Illinois, but his name recognition wasn't there. He had an interesting name, and there was other folks in the Democratic Party in that primary in 2008 that were pretty well known and so on, right? And then somehow he really was able to advance, help to have Oprah, who was the number one, had all the name recognition, right, to guide him along. But I always remember talking about that as being our first American Idol presidency, where we're really choosing for style and the way that people carry themselves, cool, over substance. I think we're still kind of in that, although Trump is kind of a different situation altogether here. But I mean, Kamala Harris is a very attractive person, but she, being born from a middle-class family is getting old, I'm interested in how if the lack of interest by the electorate in the substance is impacting this division at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's shown to be dangerous to make politics all about celebrity culture. Because Barack Obama has a lot of substance there, but I think you're right. I mean, so much of the Obama phenomenon was a celebrity phenomenon, and I think it's the same thing with Donald Trump. And this has attracted. I just think it's corroded our sense of weighing who these candidates are as people, and sadly, it used to be that parties would vet who was going to be the nominee. And
the smoke-filled room.
Yeah,
right?
And there was a lot that was undemocratic about that. Mm-hmm. But there's something to people waiting their turn, to proving they're ready, to people knowing what their real character was in the background. Look, that's going to be a difficult role to return to, but the downside of having such a democratic political culture where the voters decide who the nominees are is that they will opt for what is flashy, right, and what grabs their attention. And that is not always equal the person who should be president. And it's very polarizing. Like, what makes Trump so exciting to some really repels. It's an equal and opposite, it's the laws of physics. And this is not healthy.
Right.
It's like Democrats and Republicans, if you were 20% less excited, right, that's okay, because the other side is going to be 20% less opposed. And let's have an election where maybe you're sad if you're a candidate lose, but you don't cry, because half the country is going to be really kind of freaked out. That's not good. That's not healthy. I wish we could go back to nominating people who had spent a long career doing lots of boring things.
Right. Do you think that this manicness ends with a Trump win or loss?
I think a Trump loss means the Republicans are going to do some soul searching and finding a different path rather than not another celebrity. I mean, that's what losing does, right? In politics, losing makes you change. In life, right? Mm-hmm. Whenever you fail, you change. If you succeed, you're like, this is working. So a Trump loss, I think, is going to mean that a Republican Party is going to be put into timeout and move away from celebrity culture. But this is also, the Democrats have to decide this as well. And Kamala Harris is not a celebrity. She's not the Barack Obama phenomenon. But there has to be a way that the parties can go back to nominating people with deep backgrounds. And Kamala Harris, is somebody, according to her resume, is somebody who, in the past would have been ready to run for the president, the former vice president. But both parties, I think, need to be committed to some reforms that get us to a healthier place. And I think we need to find a way to get more people. It's only like 20% of voters participate in the primaries. We need to get centrist, moderate normies to vote in the primaries. That way, you're going to have more normie. But
candidates. all the incentive structure is against it's to the sides. The incentive is to go full left or full right.
If we had like a national primary, you get more people who participate. And that means more moderates participate. Yeah. Democrats in the late 80s, they changed their nominating rules to get more moderates to be more competitive in the primaries. There are things that you can do.
An open primary in Pennsylvania would help too, right?
Absolutely, that would help.
I'm dead against it, but I'm leaning back. I was saying, you know what, you got to keep it to your team, but I think you're right. If you as long as there wasn't too much messing around, I think it could work.
All year round, Frontier Home Products and Design has what you need to make your home comfortable and beautiful. Relax on a new timber tech deck designed by Frontier's experts. A new fireplace from Frontier Home Products Fireplace Gallery adds warmth and serenity to any home. Beauty and versatility at Frontier Home Products and Design Center, 4213 Peachtree, East 5th, next to the Bayfront Highway.
Frontier Home Products and Design Center. Discover a new frontier.
PA contractor number PA039007.
Get paid to drive. Start a new career behind the wheel at the EMTA. If you are looking for a high-paying and rewarding career with full benefits and paid training, stop by or apply online today with the EMTA. Plus, EMTA riders can now enjoy free Wi-Fi on new, clean, and environmentally friendly buses to travel all over Erie County. Visit ridethee.com for more information.
Get on board EMTA. Get on board EMTA. Get on board.
Dr. Jeff Bloodworth is our guest here on this election eve, and we're talking about this article that you wrote, How Trump is Tearing Erie Apart. Tensions run high in the bitterly contested town. I want to highlight one little vignette here. A 51-year-old Trump supporter refuses to put a GOP sticker on her Jeep Rubicon out of fear that someone would throw a brick at it. She's surely right to be afraid, making her home in Erie, PA. She lives in 2024's election political ground zero. This whole thing about Erie County being ground zero, we were kind of reliably blue for years and years. And we even in our House races, they generally go for the Democrat, but then Mike Kelly wins downstate and so on, and he's not going anywhere more than likely. But and Pennsylvania was pretty blue. I'm hearing from folks that they think within one more cycle we will be as red as Ohio. You see that? In PA?
Oh, I do. Starting in the 60s, I've written a book about this. The Democrats moved away from working class voters. And, Erie's a lagging indicator. If the Democrats don't change trajectory, which is a party of, by, and for the professional middle class, the Republicans are going to become fully and completely a multiracial working class party. And Erie has a lot of Democrats who do door-to-door stuff, right? Who really make Democrats punch above the weight of the national brand. So, but the Democratic Party has just performed political malpractice when it comes to working class voters.
So I talk about it in the terms of there are two types of Democrats that I encounter. There are the Tullio Democrats who are pretty much just center left. I mean, they're barely left. And then there's like we have this faction of progressive Democrats, AOC type, and social justice warriors that create a lot of havoc on city council and so on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's the national brand of the Democratic Party. Even though most Democrats are normies, meaning they're center left, but the people who run for office and the activists who run campaigns are not reflective of the rank and file Democratic voter. And I think Erie, if the National Party does not change its orientation back towards the working class, Erie's going to go the way of Ohio, and it's going to be a Republican county. I think Democrats are aware of that nationally, but we'll see if they can change course.
And you maybe put up somebody that's not Donald Trump in Erie. And Erie County could just fully embrace, like they embraced. I'm trying to think. Did they? Well, no. They went for John Kerry in 04, and they went for Gore in 00. But they voted for HW in Erie County in 88.
I could see, someone who didn't have. I mean, Donald Trump's the most unpopular politician in America. I mean, most anyone on that stage in 24 who's running for the Republican nomination, I think would win Erie County. My sense of what I'm hearing is that it's going to be older white voters who are Republicans who are going to, I think, give the county to Harris. And only Donald Trump could lose Erie County. I mean, with 20% inflation.
Right.
Otherwise, if this were Nikki Haley, I think I said this 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
We'd know who the president was by 8 p.m.
Oh, my gosh. Let's talk about the media. How much is the media to blame for division, even down here on at the level of Erie County, at those neighbors that are kind of bickering it out?
I mean, accepting this show.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. You have a smart show. But AM talk radio, to all sorts of cable news, to whatever's on the internet, you get clicks we know this. If it makes you mad, you click on it. We all do that.
The incentive structure is to be extreme.
Absolutely. You don't become wildly wealthy by being moderate and saying things that are reasonable and saying I see both sides of this. Nevertheless, I mean that's just that puts people to sleep.
I should be careful, Shaney, because people are driving when I'm on the air. That's true.
I mean, I think locally, if you build a brand, you build an audience. But this is, the media does bear some responsibility in this. The consumers want it, but the media also delivers it. It'd be nice if we had people at Fox News or MSNBC who looked at more than just the bottom line. And you can make money, but also serve the public interest. But the way journalism works now is the way journalism in America worked in the 18th and 19th century. We've seen this before. Partisan media, there's nothing new. In the era that we came of age, post 1945 America, we lived in a golden age where there were rules and guardrails around media, and we just returned to what we once were. I hope we can change that, and we can become more aware of the kind of media landscape that we want and build that. But we've been here before. The late 19th century is a lot like today, just in terms of economic change and our partisan politics. I think we're going to come out of this. I tell my students the republic will endure no matter who wins. But the media landscape is ugly.
I'm interested, again, you talk to a lot of young people. It absolutely abhors somebody who's educated to hear that many folks are getting their news from TikTok. And it's just like, how is this possible? But I mean, you're not going to get a kid to read 1,000-word essay in the New Yorker or in the Atlantic or what have you.
I guess. When I was a kid, we got the newspaper and I'd read it. But people are just adults are passive. They're passive, and the news comes to them. Mm-hmm. They don't go to a news site like the Washington Post or wherever. Legitimate news sources. They let it come to them, and they want to be entertained. And TikTok is more entertaining than a New York Times article or Washington Post or Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. That's how it is. I'm not sure what 10 years from now looks, but we're going to have to find a way to have a democracy where the voters actually know things. And I do get worried about that. As a historian, I have context, and I think somehow we will navigate this, but I worry about it.
Give us the conclusion that you found in writing this article, because I'm looking for a little bit of hope, I guess, from all this division.
One of the individuals I interviewed, her name is Jody. She's a Trump supporter, and she talked about her mom, who was a hardcore Democrat, and how the two of them, agreed that they weren't going to talk about politics. And I have a quote in there where she's like, "It's silly to hate somebody that you love based on your opinion about somebody you'll never meet."
Right.
And, I'm a political historian. I write about politics. I love politics. I have my own opinions about these things. But at the end of the day, life is too short to be angry at Donald Trump, be angry at Kamala Harris. Don't be angry at your neighbor. It's just silly. I was outside the courthouse the other day. I was trying to do early voting, and was too busy, which is wonderful. It's great that people are doing that. And there were people who were misbehaving, waving flags around, and it was ugly. And I just walked away. And that's just what you do. You just walk away, and their anger and remonstrations were less about their candidate. There's something kind of sad going on in their lives, and you just don't up the tension. You just walk away. And know that this will pass. I mean, the stakes matter. Yeah. But I don't know, liking your neighbor, I think, is more important.
Is it important that the parties get stronger? Is it important that we maybe have more parties? Should we be to a multi-party structure? Would that be helpful?
I don't think a multi-party structure is going to happen in America. I wish more moderate normies would get involved in the Republican and Democratic Party. It's only people who are, not only, but people who are on the fringes are those on a random Tuesday night in February, 3 years away from a presidential election year, who are going to go and work on the party central committee. Wow. And I understand we're all busy, but that's what needs to happen is moderate normies need to get more involved. And that's what I've tried to do in the last 6 or 7 years is I try to be out there more in the media, kind of putting forth a moderate opinion. Mm-hmm. I'm a moderate, and which is rare in academia. And trying to,
Do you ever take any hits?
Oh, yeah. Oh, all the time. I get screamed at academic conferences. That's been my entire career, is that, because I'm a moderate, somehow I'm a sellout. It hurt my feelings at first, but I don't care anymore.
Right.
So it's tough to be a moderate because you're seen as like not having a spine or not having strong beliefs. And I mean, that's a majority of America. I mean, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. I believe that. In fact, I know that. Our idea, maybe not how we always live it out, is a beacon to the world. And
there's a reason why people stream to our borders.
Absolutely. And so I think we get it basically right in America. And I think most Americans agree with me. And if more people who are moderates got engaged in the primaries and working for the Republican or Democratic Party, you would get candidates that more Americans would say, yeah, I like that. I agree with that. And we can do that again. But we have to, the Republican Party, the political science proves it, right, has moved further right than the Democratic Party has moved left. But both of them have left the center wide open.
Right.
And there is one party could grab the center and dominate American politics for a generation, which would make the other party move back towards the center. The question is, who wants to do that? I suspect I know there's one party is moving closer to that than the other, but I don't care. Whichever party moves towards the center, that's the one that's going to win, and we'll all profit from that, and we'll have a less divided politics.
Do you think if we're sitting here in 2028, we'll have a totally different conversation?
There's a 15% chance Donald Trump will be the nominee again. But I do think people are just so tired of this. And, what is it? The Michelle Obama, I think, at the Democratic National Convention, and people love Michelle Obama, whether you're conservative or liberal. She talked about, we don't want to live in this country where everybody's mad about politics all the time. And there's one of these two parties is going to realize that. And run on that and talk about very normie things and quit hitting all the hot buttons. And, if it's an 80-20 issue, meaning 20 people are for it and 80 people, they're going to go with those kinds of issues. And this is how we get out of this. Out of this kind of spiral that we're in. But it really does.
But you have to, to review what we've been saying, you almost have to blow up this class divide, really. You have to blow it up. You almost have to blow up the coastal elites versus the great unwashed in the 80% of the population in the middle there. I mean, we have all kinds of ways that we can divide. But that's not how we ever used to be. I mean, I was looking at old. Ronald Reagan in 1984 had over 500 electoral votes. Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah, I gave a paper at the Reagan Library a couple of years ago, and it was all about how Reagan. He's a conservative, absolutely. But what Reagan did, he took a certain basic elements of Roosevelt's liberalism, and he brought it into the Republican Party. And he brought in a lot of old Democrats, like a lot of people who lived in Erie, Reagan Democrats. And look, that's what needs to happen. So, somebody needs to, bring in elements that are popular with one of the two parties and meld them together. There was a Reagan in 1984. Nobody knows who the Republican or Democratic nominee is going to be in 28. No one wants to talk about it right now because all we want to do is get this stupid thing over.
Yes.
But there is such a hunger for this to quit happening. Mm-hmm. There is such a hunger for that. And we do it, I think, at the grassroots with moderates getting involved and finding a way to nominate people who, that the other half of the country doesn't find distasteful. I think Kamala Harris is in the cultural mainstream largely. There's a lot of liberal activists who understandably make a lot of Red America kind of just their eyes spin.
Right.
And if liberals want to win, they have to find a way to separate themselves from that. Because there's a lot of stuff out there amongst liberal activists and the stuff going on at universities that rightfully make conservatives, make them go batty.
Sure.
And it's whoever can kind of control their crazies, right? That it's a contest to do that. That's who controls the center.
Let's do to finish off with Dr. Bloodworth here. I'm thinking about midnight mass at the St. Peter's Cathedral. We don't know who the person in the next pew is, if they're Democrat, Republican, if they vote for Trump or Harris. But we're all there as a community to celebrate, the birth of Christ. It is a communal event, probably even more than a super religious event. It's the community coming together. Is that the kind of approach that we have to have the day after tomorrow of like, you know what? I'm still in this neighborhood. I'm still in this community. I still need to care for and be accepting of my neighbor.
Yeah. Take your yard sign out of your yard, win or lose, and talk about the Steelers. I think the stakes matter. Most certainly. But that's what we need to do. We need to move on. And whoever is elected, if they start doing things that are outrageous and beyond the constitutional norms, hey, take that on. Absolutely.
It might be that having a divided government again could be the best thing to happen for us. Huh?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Harris is going to win by a feather. I think the Republicans are going to hold the Senate. And they'll gridlock, at least in this case, will make both sides kind of feel a little bit better. I could be totally wrong. I can see a scenario. But yeah, talk about football. COVID's over, thank God.
Yeah.
And, we need to find entertainment beyond politics. And like you said,
that's a really good point. Like, we're getting our blood pressure up because it's kind of fun. It's you get a little dopamine hit out of this thing.
Yeah. I mean, we all like to feel like the other person's stupid and we're smart. Right?
Oh, my God.
Don't we all like to do that?
Yeah.
And so we have to find a way, if you think Donald Trump's stupid, great. That's wonderful. That doesn't mean his supporters are.
Yeah.
And it's the other way around, right? You don't like Kamala Harris, great. But her supporters, a lot of them are really smart, good people. And turn the page, talk about something else. I know at work sometimes professors will not realize that there are Trump supporters in their midst, and I'm always winking and going, "How could you say that?"
right.
And so we all just need to stop it after the election and just change the subject. And if a big public issue comes up and you think the national government is wrong, take that on, be active.
Yeah.
But until somebody's inaugurated, calming down is a very good thing.
And one last thing, and super Erie-centric here. The stakes are high for Erie. Not necessarily in the national scale, but just in a quintessential systemic situation where we're not out of the woods of our renaissance in Erie, PA. And so it's going to take every neighbor to row in the same direction to get Erie to the place where we want it to be again. And so checking out or create, pushing divides is not going to help Erie move forward.
Not at all. I'm not from Erie, but I love Erie. We have this great place on Presque Isle. It's a wonderful city that's on the edge of a real renaissance and revival. You can already see it. Your studios being downtown show that. We need the best people running for city council, and we need the best people, right, who are putting their voices forward to their city council members, right, in the most moderate yet substantive ways, and tuning out because your candidate loses or deciding that the other party's evil. That doesn't get us forward. And locally, this is where the partisan divide matters less.
Yeah.
Right? We agree on so much more than what we realize. In the polls, we agree. Americans mostly agree on just abortion policy. Right. What they don't agree on is the personality and the style of their national leader. And so just put that in the background, and let's make Erie a better place, because that ultimately that's all we can do is kind of till the garden in our own backyard, and we're observers to the national scene once we cast our vote. Because I'm an American, I'm an optimist. I grew up. I'm a Reagan baby, right? I cannot help but think the 21st century will be better than the 20th, despite how nasty and hyper-partisan our politics are.
Dr. Jeff Bloodworth, appreciate you taking the time.
It's great to be on.
Go vote, folks. I appreciate you being here.
You've been listening to The Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast from TalkErie.com. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcatcher and get involved by emailing joel@TalkErie.com.